Hey guys, back with my predictions for UFC Fight Night 86, Rothwell versus Dos Santos. Starting off with my recap of UFC 196, McGregor versus Diaz, because I did not show you my updated ranking on my last video, my predictions video for Fight Night 85, Hunt versus Mir. So I'm going to show you my ranking now. And do revisit that video. I'll link it in the description, but I thought that the advantages that I thought Diaz would have in the fight that I pointed out, I thought, the fight almost played out exactly how I thought it would if Diaz was going to win. I did pick McGregor, but just check that out. Give me some love. See what you think of my prediction in hindsight. But revisit that video. I will leave the link in the description. But UFC 196, 8 for 12. That's one of my best events for the year. I've been doing pretty poorly lately. You guys know that if you've been following me. I think 195 was the last card that I did well above average on. So it was good to have a good night, and that bumped me up in the rankings to 3,000 from like 4,000, which is where I was at the start of the event. And then I was 1865 for the event. All right, so I got McGregor and Holm wrong, both very good title fights. I don't feel the need to talk about any of these fights, but just showing you what I got there. All right. All right, so UFC Fight Night 86, Rothwell versus Dos Santos in Zagreb, Croatia on April 10th. And normally I'm very critical of the international cards, but this one, and I do believe it's on Fight Pass, but this one there are actually some matchups that I'm really looking forward to, and I think it's going to be a fun card. It should move pretty fast on Fight Pass, so I kind of like this one. I think it's for me definitely a lot more interesting than the Hunt versus Mir card, which is coming up tomorrow actually, but yeah, kind of looking forward to this one. Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a Fight Pass card because there's no, on Wikipedia they don't have a breakdown between the main card or the prelim card, so I'm just going to start from the bottom here and go up. So I'm not sure if this is going to be the first fight, but they have it listed here separately from the rest of the fight card. Francis Ngannou versus Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades, a newcomer, don't know him. Francis Ngannou, I really liked his debut knockout win over Luis Enrique. Didn't look too great up until the finish, but the finishing sequence, I think he caught him with an uppercut and just stopped him dead in his tracks. Big power. A really tall, lanky guy for heavyweight, even for heavyweight. So I like that. Just some fresh blood in the division. So looking forward to seeing him again. But yeah, I can't make a pick because Blades is debuting, and there are a lot of matchups on here which we're just going to skip right over because there are a lot of guys making their debut, and I don't make picks when that's the case. But let's continue at women's strawweight. Marina Moroz versus Christina Stanciu, another debuting fighter. Marina Moroz thought she looked great in her debut against Joanne Calderwood. Chased her down with good combinations and then pulled guard. Submitted her with the armbar, got her out of there very quickly. And then in her fight with Latorno, definitely did not have the same kind of performance she did against Calderwood. Was dropped, I believe, in the first round in that fight. I think she did have an armbar attempt at one point on the ground. It was kind of back and forth, but did have her moments where she did not look good on the ground. So I don't think the Calderwood performance is what we can expect from her every time. I think that Latorno loss showed that if she fights someone with higher skill level and more ability on the ground, she's going to struggle. So don't know Christina Stanciu, so I can't make a pick. But Moroz, I think, is still a pretty talented fighter in the division. All right, next up at welterweight, two newcomers, Bojan Velikovic versus Alessio Di Chirico, an Italian fighter, which that alone has me interested. I am half Italian, so we almost never get an Italian fighter in the UFC. I think the only guys ever were Alessio Sakara and Luigi Fioravanti. So that has me interested, but again, two newcomers, can't make a pick, don't know anything about them, but I'll definitely be rooting for Chirico. All right, next up at heavyweight, Jared Cannonier versus Cyril Asker. Jared Cannonier had a knockout loss to Sean Jordan. I believe that was in the first round, and then this guy also lost to Justin Jones, I believe. Let me look that up real quick. The Sean Jordan fight was his only fight in the UFC. Lost pretty quickly. Really, we didn't get to see much from him. And Cyril Asker making his debut. I guess another fight where I can't make a pick. Yeah, Cyril Asker making his debut. All right, so moving along at featherweight, Robert Whiteford versus Lucas Martins. This is an interesting matchup. I think Whiteford, he has the more well-rounded game with the judo background. I think he can pressure Martins with some takedown attempts. We saw in his second fight in the UFC against Daniel Pineda. Pineda was a pretty good submission fighter. He was able to do well on the ground, stay in top position, controlled Pineda. And on the feet, Whiteford, he has some big power. He showed that in his first round knockout win over Paul Redmond. And his striking, I thought, looked pretty good against Elkins, but he really gets caught up in trying to land the one big punch, it seems. Doesn't really let his hands go. Doesn't throw combinations. Just throwing single big strikes. And got taken down by Elkins. Couldn't stop that. But, I thought he got beat a lot less dominantly than Chaz Skelly just did against Darren Elkins. So, Whiteford might not be too bad, but, he does have a loss to Jimmy Hedis as well in his debut. But Lucas Martins, he can. I think he's a guy who came into the UFC, had some really impressive wins over some pretty weak competition. Jeremy Larson, Junior Hernandez did have a win over Alex White, who is a better opponent. Has power in his hands. He has hand speed. But you saw against Darren Elkins and in his last fight against Bektik that he doesn't have good takedown defense. If he gets put on his back, he doesn't have much from there. And even against Elkins, he didn't even get put on his back too much, but just had to fight off the takedowns. And Elkins was pretty much able to get him against the fence and outstrike him when they separated. Martins was never able to get his back off the fence. So I think Whiteford, if he mixes in the judo, the grappling, he will be able to squeak out a decision here. Both guys have power on the feet. Martins is more of a high volume striker, more of a pressure striker. But Whiteford, he seems pretty capable on the feet, and he can land a big shot. So I don't think he's going to be totally outskilled on the feet, but I think Martins might have a slight advantage there. But Whiteford is just better all around, I think. And we've really seen Martins struggle recently against fighters who he should have had a big advantage over, at least on the feet, at least against Darren Elkins. But he just couldn't deal with the pressure and the clinch fighting. So I'm going to take Whiteford here to win a decision, but it's close. Martins could certainly win, but I'll go with Whiteford for a decision. All right, next up at bantamweight, newcomers Philippe Pekajic versus, Damian Stasiak. This is his second fight. He's not a newcomer, but again, won't be making a pick. I don't know. I don't know Pekajic. Damian Stasiak, he fought Yatsin Mesa in his debut, and I remember him taking his back early in the fight in the first round, attempting a rear naked choke, and then when he couldn't get it after that, just got out wrestled, couldn't stop the takedown, couldn't get off of his back, lost the decision. So some ability there, I guess, but really struggled with the wrestling. But yeah, we're gonna have to move on. All right, at bantamweight, Ian Entwistle versus Alejandro Perez. I'm going with Entwistle here. Perez is not a guy who I was really impressed with on Tough Latin America. I didn't think he won the finale against Jose Quinones. And, still, it was only 2 fights ago that he got absolutely ran over by Patrick Williams, finished brutally. And then his last fight against Scott Jorgensen was able to stop him with leg kicks. Clearly a very debilitated Scott Jorgensen who can't fight anymore. So I don't know. I'm not too high on Perez. I think his overall MMA game is clearly, his overall skill level is clearly getting better. I believe he trains at AKA. Yeah. But I have to go with Entwistle here. Perez doesn't seem to have a dominant skill, whereas Entwistle does. The leg locks. I thought he made a fool of himself in his debut against Dan Hooker, attempting the leg lock and ended up getting pounded out and, still holding on to the lock even when he was, clearly losing the fight. But then made it work against Anthony Burchak in his next fight. And, Burchak, he went on to have a really good win over Joe Soto. So, I like Entwistle here. I think he's able to get that leg lock on Perez, so got to go with him by first round submission. All right, next up at lightweight, Mirbek Taisumov versus Damir Hadzovic, another debuting fighter who I don't know. What I heard, though, from Zane Simon on the MMA Vivisection on MMANation.com, their YouTube channel, he said that he was disappointed because Hadzovic was a good prospect, but they were putting him against Taisumov. So that makes me confident that Taisumov is going to win. But yeah, Taisumov has looked really, really great in his last 3 fights. All first round finishes, I believe, where he's just been able to style on his opponents. And 2 of those guys were really, absolute bottom of the ranks guys, and Anthony Cristodolo and Marcin Bandel, but he was just able to do whatever he wanted to them. Has an array of unorthodox strikes, big power, speed, a very talented, dangerous, unorthodox striker. But then his last fight against Alan Patrick, that was definitely a big step up in competition, and took him a little while to get going, but eventually, knocked him out too. So that shows me that he can use those same skills and be as effective against better competition. So I'm really kind of high on Taisumov. I'd expect him to get an impressive win here, but without knowing Hadzovic, I can't make an official pick. And actually, I said he had 3 first-round finishes, but his last 2 wins came in the second round. Okay, so next up at welterweight, Nicholas Dalby versus Zach Cummings. This is a great fight here. Really looking forward to this matchup. And I think it could go either way. On the feet, I think Dalby should have the advantage. He just looks like the more polished kickboxer. Has a high output rate. Zach Cummings, though, he's powerful on the feet. We saw that in his last fight against Dominique Steele. Put him out early, chased him down, and landed big strikes that put Steele out. So Cummings has power. I was also impressed with his first round against Gunnar Nelson in their fight. I thought he outstruck him, and he was able to get him in the clinch and control him positionally there. So Zach Cummings is he's capable on the feet, but against a guy like Dalby, who's a really high pressure, high output, good kickboxer, I don't know if Zach Cummings has the skill or the technique to hang with him for 3 rounds on the feet. And if it goes to the ground, I think that it'll be really interesting there, and I think Cummings could have a big advantage there. He has grappling skills. He submitted Ben Alloway with a Darce choke in his debut, and he outgrappled Jan Cabral. Was too big and strong for him, but from top position was able to nullify his submission game and get some ground and pound in. So if Cummings is able to take him down, I think he'd have a good advantage there, although Dalby showed some good takedowns in his debut against Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. But yeah, it's a close fight, and Dalby showed against Darren Till, he can struggle with range on the feet. He was losing. I think he dropped the first 2 rounds, then landed that head kick in the 3rd round, and got a 10-8 round. So he's dangerous on his feet as well. But I'm just going to side with Dalby here. I think he looks like the more skilled kickboxer. And Zach Cummings, he looks dangerous. He's got submission skills, good on the feet, but I have to go with the fighter who just seems to be a little more technical and just a more solid, well-rounded kickboxer. So I'm going with Dalby here to win a decision. Our next up at light heavyweight, Igor Pokrajac versus Jan Blachowicz. What is Pokrajac still doing in the UFC? Actually, he's not. He did get cut. So he was cut, went on a 3-fight win streak outside of the UFC. But I don't want to see him back. This guy was on a 5-fight losing streak before he got cut from the UFC. Losses to Joey Beltran, Ryan Jimmo, Vinny Magalhaes, Cavalcante, and Rogerio de Lima. And I even thought he lost his fight before that losing streak against Fabio Maldonado. I thought he should have lost that fight as well. So clearly not a UFC level talent. And I think Jan Blachowicz is just going to run over him. We saw against Rogerio de Lima and Rafael Cavalcante that these guys who can throw big shots and just blitz him and pressure him against the cage, that these guys are just going to run through Pokrajac, and that's exactly what Blachowicz is. He had a very dominant win over Ilir Latifi, slammed that shin to his body and put him down, and Latifi's been doing pretty well after that loss. And that was his only loss in the UFC other than Mousasi in his debut. So Blachowicz, I think, is definitely a dangerous striker. He's just he's really struggled in his last couple of fights with the clinch fighting and the wrestling. It seemed like against Corey Anderson he couldn't stop the takedown to save his life, and the fight against Jimmy Manuwa was pretty terrible. He couldn't get his back off the fence, but I don't expect Pokrajac to be able to do that to him at all. So, yeah, I'm taking Blachowicz. I think he gets an early finish here. All right, next up at heavyweight, Timothy Johnson versus newcomer Marcin Tybura. Yeah, won't be able to make a pick, but Timothy Johnson, I think he looks okay. He doesn't look like one of the worst heavyweights in the UFC. I really liked his debut win over Shamil Abdurakhimov. Not much was going on the feet in that fight, but shot in for a takedown, a blast double, and from there pounded him out from mount, I believe. So, that was good. And then his fight against Jared Rosholt, I expected him to win that fight, and I thought he definitely could have won that fight, but he just fought like a complete bonehead in that fight, was choosing to clinch with Rosholt over and over again, and in the third round, finally came alive and tried to pursue the finish, and did. I think he dropped Rosholt at least once. So he has some, he has power, but just showed a low fight IQ in that fight. But again, I don't know. I don't know anything about Tybura, so can't make a pick. But I think Timothy Johnson has some ability. All right, co-main event: heavyweight Gabriel Gonzaga versus Derek Lewis. I'm going to go with Gonzaga here. I think everyone's going to be really quick to disregard him and just take Lewis as a big favorite. But Lewis, he hasn't convinced me that he can really stop the takedown against a strong grappler. I mean, this is a guy who, against Ruin Potts, even when he had him on his back, Potts was still able to fend him off by going for leg locks from his back when Lewis was standing over him, and Lewis just had to back off because he didn't want to mess with that. And he got out grappled pretty easily by Victor Pesta in their fight. I think for 2 rounds, or at least the first round, ended up finishing him, but got taken down easily, and from his back couldn't do anything. And he looked good in his last fight against Damian Grabowski. He got a quick finish in the first round, but I don't think Gonzaga is Grabowski or Pesta, even if he's on the decline. I mean, this is a guy who a couple years ago, still submitted Ben Rothwell, got a knockout over Sean Jordan. So he's still dangerous on the feet. He can still pull out a submission, and proved in his last fight against Konstantin Erikin, who's another slugger that he can just hit that takedown repeatedly and went on takedown. So I think he can do that here to Lewis. I mean, Gonzaga is prone to just mess up and have a mental lapse at some point in the fight. I thought the loss to Krokop was really terrible. Mounted him early in that fight. Couldn't submit him, and then I don't know what round it was. I think third or fourth. Krokop was just able to reverse, get on top of him, and pounded him out with elbows. So if Gonzaga finds himself on his back at any point, I think Lewis certainly, he has the power and the aggression to just put him out quickly. But I think Lewis is going to be very hesitant on the feet, knowing that Gonzaga is going to take him down, and Gonzaga is he's a proven grappler, longtime UFC veteran, good submission skills. So Lewis, I think, is just too easy to take down. Really hasn't shown that he's made big improvements in his takedown defense, at least not against high-level competition. So I fully expect Gonzaga to be able to just take him down round after round and get the decision. So going with Gonzaga here for a decision. All right, and then the main event at heavyweight, Ben Rothwell versus Junior Dos Santos. I really don't have too much to say about this fight, other than Rothwell has been extremely impressive. Picked against him in the Barnett fight, picked against him in the Mitrione fight. I did pick him. I did call the first round knockout against Overeem, though. And Rothwell, I think he still struggles, skill-wise with the striking. Was getting kind of picked apart early by Overeem. Josh Barnett was able to do some damage to his eye, but he's able to withstand all of that, and he's a real opportunist, and he's got some real finishing moves that go-go choke that he uses. Seems like it's a super dangerous killer move. And Junior Dos Santos, this guy is just completely done. The Kane fights, obviously he took so much damage in those fights. And then it was the Stipe Miocic fight where, I really noticed that this guy is going downhill. He just looked like a shell of himself. Still managed to win that fight. But I think an early career Junior Dos Santos would have knocked out Miocic. And then his fight against Overeem, I still picked him to win that, but you knew at that point something was wrong, and he just looked gun shy. His chin was totally shot. Overeem was able to put him out, and he doesn't have a wrestling game he can go to against Rothwell. And even if he did, Rothwell is he's becoming a submission threat now. So I don't see what Dos Santos can do here. I don't think he has that jab, that range striking game to pick apart Rothwell like Overeem was doing. He's a guy who's always really relied on his speed, his power, his combinations, and his aggression to outstrike guys. He's never been a guy to pick apart someone technically, and I think he's just going to be hesitant. Rothwell's going to come at him, and if Rothwell, just all he has to do is not be too reckless, and I think he can knock out Dos Santos. Just given how suspect Dos Santos' chin is at this point, or I think he could even take him down and beat him up on the ground. So I like Rothwell big time here. He's surging. He's been improving at a very high rate fight to fight, and Junior Dos Santos has just been going the opposite way. At a pretty fast rate himself. So definitely taking Rothwell here. I don't see any reason at all to take Dos Santos. And taking Rothwell. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC Fight Night 86, Rothwell versus Dos Santos. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to check out my McGregor versus Diaz prediction from UFC 196. I'll link that video in the description. And the next event is UFC on Fox, Nurmagomedov versus Ferguson, which is a really good card. The best fight night card I think the UFC has put on this year. So that'll be fun. And until then, take care, you guys. Happy Easter. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.